So this is what we do. We just take the humans out of what they shouldn't be doing so that they can do more of what they're qualified to do and what I think they're more happy to do than keying in stuff, which is boring as hell. And then we replace that with technology, and the human in the loop still stays. The human in the loop still approves and says, yes, this is good to go at the end. So the human review is still there.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. I'm your host, J. Michael Fischer Jr. You know, most conversations about artificial intelligence focus on what the technology can do. How much faster can it make us? How much money can it save us? How many tasks can we automate? But today, I want to go deeper, because when technology begins replacing not only repetitive labor, but increasingly sophisticated expert work, the real question is no longer just what happens to the business. The real question is what happens to the human being. My guest today is Ivan Nikolov, co-founder of Parallon AI. Ivan was born in Bulgaria, built a career in life, fitness, and performance coaching, and now lives in Spain. Today, he is helping build technology designed to replace some of the most expensive and repetitive workflows inside a business. Ivan and his co-founder, our mutual friend John Ziss, and a former guest of the podcast, shared a bold thesis about where the world is heading. They believe businesses will increasingly be able to grow without adding headcount. They also believe much of the work we currently consider essential may eventually disappear altogether. There's a tremendous opportunity in that future, but there's also difficult questions around identity, contribution, trust, responsibility, and meaning. Who are you when you no longer need to work? What happens when the economy no longer requires your labor? And in a world where technology can replicate more and more of what we do, does human connection become the most valuable skill we have left? Today, Ivan and I are going beyond the technology. We're going to talk about his journey, the philosophy behind Parallon AI, and the possibility of a post-labor world, and what all of that means for business owners, employees, and the future of human connection. Ivan, welcome to Going Beyond the Deal.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me here.
It's great to have you today, my friend. So let's get into it. You were born in Bulgaria and you built, your career, a lot of it in the United States. Now you live in Spain. Can you kind of give us an abbreviated version of that journey?
Yeah, sure. When I was 28, I was already competing in natural bodybuilding in my mother country, Bulgaria. But when I was 28, I immigrated to the United States. And there I competed. I continued to compete. Also, I built a bit of a career around fitness training and coaching, because that's what competitive athletes do. I did a lot of other things as well. I was in the United States for 16 years. I thought I was going to spend there the rest of my life. It was my home country, but paths switched and changed, and my journey sent me all the way to Malaysia, where I spent 2 years working for an amazing company in the edtech industry called Mind Valley. I was a community manager and facilitator there. That's where I met my second wife, and we moved back to Europe, not to our home countries, but to Spain. And here we are in Spain. This is my 6th year in Spain.
I love it. I love it. So, spending the time, it's something that we have in common. We both spent some time in the life and personal and fitness coaching world. What did your time in that world, really teach you about people?
Well, let me take a step back. When I was a fitness coach and trainer in a gym, I noticed something. Most people who came to me to talk about personal training wanted to lose weight back then, and I think it's still the case now. But I learned to tell from just asking one question, whether the person will be successful or not. And the question I would ask them is, what is an important date for you within 6 to 9 months from now? And usually I would say, it's my birthday or my wedding anniversary, something like that. And then I would ask them, picture that day. How do you look on that day? What do you see there? Do you have your current body or do you have the new body that you want? And based on this answer, I could immediately tell if they would be successful. If they said, I saw myself the way I am now, that was almost guaranteed that because they wanted something, but they didn't have the identity and self-image shift to support that. And ultimately, that's what happens. And this is not a part of physical training. This is a part of mindset. And so early on, it became very clear to me that mindset is far more important than the actual exercises and the training routines and the diet routines and all of that. If people had the mindset, not only the goal, but they had the self-image to support that, then they would be successful. So I had to understand that I had to work on their self-image first before we even get to the exercise. And so later that transitioned into mindset coaching and so on, which is what I did until a year and a half ago. I still do that on the side, but that's everything, mindset.
I love it. So I have to say one thing, similar technique that I still use to this day is I call it checkpoints, right? So for me, someone who, I was never, I would say, a fat guy, right? I was a bit huskier at one point in time, and got all the way down to, 7.2% body fat. I mean, that was something that I was able to achieve and have been able to stay within striking distance of that now for a good 3 or 4 years now. I've been able to stay at that. And for me, what I've always done is checkpoints. So my birthday's around May. I always want to make sure that when I look in the mirror on May 21st, my birthday, am I the way that I want to look? My daughter's birthday is in September. So again, like that's another checkpoint for me. And then obviously, Jan 1, when the clock starts over and we're ready to walk into January 1st, how am I at that point? And it's not just a checkpoint physically, right? But it's mentally, where are you? What are you thinking about? Where is my mindset at that point? So I like to kind of keep that pulse. So very interesting connection there. So how does someone who spent, the majority of his career, helping people unlock, their ultimate potential, start building AI and automating human work? I mean, how did that switch happen?
Well, first of all, I don't think we ever get to unlock our ultimate potential. I think that's, it's not unlimited, but I don't think we're meant to reach our potential in life. But to answer your question, I don't think these two are directly related to me. I haven't been able to pinpoint a direct connection. My mind is very linear and logical, although I would say that I am a bit spiritual in a way, not in the woo-woo sense, but I appreciate what's unseen and what's unexplained. But my mind is very logical. And so what appealed to me immediately was that logic. So I get to use a favorite muscle of my mind, and it fits perfectly with how AI works. So that was how I got there.
I love it. I love it. When you and I first kind of had a conversation ahead of recording the podcast, what I said to you is, I feel like podcasts and discussions around AI and how it saves you time and everything is just, we're hearing a lot of that in the industry right now, and just in the market, there's a lot of noise in AI. But what really struck me that wanted me to have a deeper conversation with you was, I love the mindset coaching. I love the coaching aspect that you bring to the table because it's something that we have in common. But what you brought up to me is this possibility of a post-labor world and what that could actually mean for us as a society. Can you delve into that a little bit for me?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a favorite topic for me. I'd much rather not talk about AI automations. This is boring as hell. But the consequences of that, we live in unprecedented times. That's the truth. This technology is developing exponentially fast, like an asymptote. It's just flying. And they say today's the slowest day will ever be. And so that's true. It's speeding up every single day. And within 5 to 7 or even 10 years, we're going to live in a world that we cannot even imagine right now. And I'm following people who are well into this, shakers and movers, but people who understand this technology very intimately and have spent most of their lives in these arenas. They don't know, they cannot forecast more than 12 to 18 months from today because of how fast everything is changing. So we don't even know these 5-year plans. Nothing works like that anymore. So the world has already changed, but the change has just begun. What's coming upon us is, I'm going to use the words of a mentor of mine who is a unique individual in the sense that his first PhD is in AI and his second PhD is in philosophy and the philosophy of mind. And he's the leading idealist philosopher, I would say, in the world. But he combines these two fields, and he's also co-founder of probably the only European startup right now for AI hardware, for chips for AI. So he sits on both sides, what's happening with the inner journey and also what's happening with the technology and the speed of it. He's right in the center of both. So he said something 7-8 months ago that really struck me. He said, within a year, it will seem like there is a new species on the planet. And I think we're starting to sense that. AI is already doing things that is surprising even the people training it. They're discovering zones inside of its own intellect called J spaces, where it's reasoning, it's thinking the way we're thinking. And so where this is going to go, we cannot even imagine. But if we don't mess things up, which we may, because we're humans and we're messy humans, what the world will look like within 5, 7, 10 years will be possibly a magical place. Why? Because almost everything that humans do right now will be done by AI and by robotics. And in that sense, our social contract will have to change. The way the economy works will have to completely change, because the prices of everything will drop down to almost zero. The only price would be the price for energy and raw materials for producing these, machines that will be doing the work that we're doing right now. And it's going to be hard. All of these individuals that I follow agree, and they disagree on most other topics, but they agree on this one, which tells me that they're right about that. They agree that we're going to go through a messy period, hard period of maybe 5 years, maybe 7 years. I think this has already started. I'm experiencing it with my work already, and my work is such that I follow the work of other people. They're experiencing it as well. But when we get to the other side, it will be beautiful, because we will no longer have to work and to engage in production and output to secure our survival and living well, not only just survival, but living well. And so at that point, the things that will remain when career no longer matters, when what you do for a living no longer matters, the things that remain are basically, yes, human connection, because all you'll have around you is humans, and you'll have all the time in the world to do all the things that right now you cannot do because of your career, because of the commitment to the business, to the work. Our kids, the next generations, and mastering how we pass on to values and spending time with them, our own personal philosophy, what we think about life. When your feet hit the floor in the morning and there is no job to go to, what are you going to do then? You know, it's a lot of fun to do all the things that you want to do now, like travel and play and so on. But that's going to get old at one point. What do you do next? I think at that time, we're going to start to ask deeper questions of existence. Why am I here? What's the purpose of all of this, when the purpose is no longer related to what I do for a living and what I want to achieve in my career? The achievement game is no longer there. So these are some interesting questions that we'll be asking ourselves. So we have personal contemplation, personal philosophy, we have connection, and we have learning. We'll have all the time to learn anything we want to learn. And finally, we will have time to engage in art. And when I say art, what I mean by art is how we uniquely express ourselves in just about anything. And I personally didn't think about that much at all until this mentor of mine that I just mentioned pointed this out. What he said was, look, everything you do and how you appear, that's your art. How I have my facial hair, that's my art. And it is changing. My art is changing. Maybe I won't have facial hair a year from now. So that will be my way of expressing how I walk, my gait, how I drive my car, how I communicate with people. All of this is my art. And so how I dress. And so each one of us will have a lot more time for all of these things, to think about our lives and what is the purpose and meaning of our lives when achievement and sustenance is no longer on the table, and how we connect to other humans. And we talked with you about this before. What do you do when you meet a human 10, 15 years from now? And what do you do is no longer a relevant question. What do you ask them? The first question is, who are you? And the second question is, well, what do you do now? Yeah. Well, this is not going to mean anything in 10, 15 years. Or it will change its meaning to lead towards, what do you do for finding meaning in life? Where do you find meaning? And so it's going to be a completely different world. We cannot even imagine, because for thousands of years, we've done human life in a specific way when we had to survive, when we had to exchange the fruits of our labor for survival and security and success. But soon we won't have to.
So, I guess I have a couple of, kind of follow-up questions on this. We talk about what could be the next 3 to 10 years, 7 years, whatever it is, where it's going to get difficult, right? Because the one thing that I keep going back to, and I've had this conversation, a lot of my friends and a lot of people I know have always said, well, you work too hard, Michael, right? Well, I work too hard. I work really hard because I enjoy what I do, number one. But number two, I want to be able to provide my family with a very nice life. People are all in different levels, social, economic, levels of society. What happens to society over the next 5 years? I mean, is it that the people that can survive these 5 years will be able to experience this, this paradise that we're kind of talking about, this post-labor, paradise? I mean, how does that work out? I mean, are you going to be able to survive that? Or do you have to survive that 5 years to be able to enjoy that?
Michael, I wish I knew the answer to this question. I don't think anybody knows the answer. Some people have ideas. What I would say is, and you alluded to that in your question. You said, I have to do these things. It's not going to be in 5 years, but let's say in 10 years, I believe the have to will fall away, because I have to implies I don't really want to, but I have to. And what will remain is I get to, I choose to, I'd love to. And so at that point, somebody like you and me, because I think most of us will be provided in some form that we don't fully have figured out yet. Universal basic income is one idea, but there are a few other ideas, many ideas, I think. So most of us will have to be provided in some way. And remember, robotics and manufacturing will be almost free. resources will be sourced not only from the planet, but from outside the planet as well, Dyson swarms and so on. So providing for normal life is not going to be an issue if we figure it out. And that's a big if, I think. However, for people like you and me who want to express more, I think that will be our golden age where we can do more, not from the I have to, but I'd love to, because this is how I'm expressing. This is how I find purpose and meaning in life right now. I just want to do more of that. And this is my personal way of living my purpose right now, living and finding meaning in life right now. And so I don't think people like you and I will stop doing what we're doing. Well, maybe it'll evolve, but we will always produce in a way, not because we have to earn our living or create more as far as affluence, but because it's just pressing inside of us and we want to create. And maybe we will be rewarded even more for that in some ways, but I have no idea about how this is going to work.
Where I go though is, I'm 44 years old. I have a daughter who's going to be 7, in the next couple months. What is that going to mean for her? I mean, I feel like a lot of what built J. Michael Fischer Jr. and who he is today is the struggles that I had to go through in my life. I mean, when I was younger, almost getting my car repossessed. I mean, almost being homeless. I mean, being in really bad situations. And I had to get through those things. And that gave me the experience to build who I am today. And if, we're already living in, and I'm not going to pick on people, but we already live in a society right now where we have a lot of people that kind of, we say, live on, easy street, like people don't want to work as hard. People don't want to do these things. And now we're going to make that even more convenient for people not to do that. I mean, how are people going to learn responsibility at that point?
Well, this is a sensitive topic for me. We had a private chat some time ago, and I shared with you that I was born and raised in communism. In fact, I was prepared to be a communist leader when democracy came when I was almost 16 years old. I literally was going to be a communist, and not because I wanted to, but because that was the only path. There was, and you've heard the saying, fish does not know that it's in water because that's all it experiences, right? That's how we were back in communism. I didn't have an idea of what life could be because we were so shielded that, well, this was life. And in a very weird sense, we weren't unhappy because we didn't have the contrast of what it could be. This was what we had and life was okay, until we got the contrast with democracy. And so it's a sensitive topic for me. When I was in the United States, I also fell in love with Ayn Rand's writings, Atlas Shrugged and Fountainhead and her big work there. I don't fully support that right now, but it shifted my view of the world and what it means for some people to produce and for many others to wait for those who produce to provide for them. And it's only enough to claim that you deserve so that you can receive. That's a very sensitive topic for me. I don't know what this is going to look like, but what I can tell you is that struggle and suffering will always be there. We may not have to work for our survival, but that doesn't mean we're not going to struggle. It's just a part of the human experience. And so you have a daughter that's 7 years old. I have a son that's 4.5. I have the same questions you have. What is the world going to be like for him? I have some ideas, but they're very practical ideas. For example, he probably won't ever have to have a driver license because humans won't be allowed to drive, especially in urban places where everything will be moving from technology an inch distance and driving at 100 miles per hour. You put a human there and it's going to be a mess. So it'll probably be illegal for humans to even drive. He's not going to drive. He's probably not going to go to school the way we do school now. That's going to change radically. He'll probably have private tutors, electronic AI tutors for his education. It'll probably be a very freestyle education, honoring what's interesting for him. But as far as the struggle that they'll have to go to, I'm not too worried about that because it's a part of life. Struggle is a part of life. Suffering is preventable, but most of us don't know how to suffer less. And we do what's called meta suffering. We suffer and then we suffer because we know that we suffer. So we're very good at that. I'm not worried about them not suffering and not learning lessons. Maybe there will be other ways they'll have to learn lessons, but I don't have the answers.
Okay. Gotcha. Sorry, it's all these things that keep me up at night when I start thinking about it when I'm putting my daughter to bed. I'm sure it's the same thing with you. So let's get into a little bit about, Parallon AI. I know you said it's a little boring, but it's exciting. John Ziss and John's been a guest on the podcast. John and I share an executive mentor, a mutual friend that you have, Charles Scott, also been a guest on the podcast, really good friend of mine. John and I have developed a really close relationship. And then he really went headfirst into AI and really started thinking about AI and how it can be integrated to businesses. But, the one thing that John wanted to bring to kind of change that a little bit was the fact that he had sat in an executive level role, both, in the C-suite from CEO to CFO, and he understands things at kind of a higher level. So, what is the approach, from your perspective that Parallon AI is doing that's kind of different than the average everyday AI integration company that's out there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Michael. It's connected to what I just talked about. I think I touched on that several times already. But when we talk about what we do, we don't even mention AI, flows, automation, which is, I think, how we started because we had to learn. But I think that's what most of the other AI firms do. What we talk about is paper to system. We take the paper that's now being served by a human being who's possibly highly qualified, and they're logging in hours every week doing something repetitive that they shouldn't be doing, that they're far better qualified to do something that justifies them having that expertise. And so what I mean by paper to system is paper could be just about anything. I don't mean physical paper. I mean emails, PDFs, invoices, purchase receipts, orders, images from landscapes, field packages. What I even mean is somebody's knowledge in their head being documented and put into a system that other people can use by just a single sentence of a prompt. Which is a huge benefit because there are many companies that we talk with. And when we ask them, well, do you have an SOP about this process? No, it's just so-and-so person has been with the company for 12 years already. They're doing it. They know exactly how to do it. We've never documented it. And so even getting that from inside people's heads into language that an AI can understand and work with it, and then coach another person who's completely outside of this field, but they can then follow the process from the AI that was trained by this individual. That is what we call paper to system. So this is what we do. We just take the humans out of what they shouldn't be doing so that they can do more of what they're qualified to do and what I think they're more happy to do than keying in stuff, which is boring as hell. And then we replace that with technology, and the human in the loop still stays. The human in the loop still approves and says, yes, this is good to go at the end. So the human review is still there.
Yeah. I'm a big SOP person. So when I ran the online fitness company, I mean, that was my biggest thing. That it was a game changer for me was, okay, I can actually document the things that I want to have done in a way. And, I did it, I had it written, I had a video, then the Loom video showing me how to do said task and everything. And it's crazy because, like AI wasn't even there then, we were on the precipice of it. And it's crazy to be now because now I think about those SOPs that I would built out, but now I can have a bot that I train to do those things from the SOP, which is absolutely, absolutely crazy.
I mean,
So
look, just to say a couple more words on that.
please.
I'm also involved in another startup. Still involved there, being a year and a half or more. How I used to do SOPs 12 months ago was literally I was typing them and creating Notion documents and documenting everything in a special SOP base. Then we created templates that would help us, but still everything was manual. Then we started feeding these templates into an AI that would just take the questions and ask one by one and then spit out the final document. And now it's as easy as just hold the record button and do consciousness dump on your process. And it can be as messy as it needs to be and how it comes out. And then the AI is so advanced now that it just takes it. And of course, it requires a carefully crafted master prompt. But it takes the messy notes, whether it's a voice note, copy and paste note, or uploaded document. And then it creates another master prompt for itself, which we call a skill. And then this skill goes into a database. None of this is seen by humans. Humans don't see that. That's happening in the background. It goes in the database. So let's use Claude, for example. And then somebody else in the organization is now connected to this database through their Claude account, their personal Claude account that the company provides. So their Claude is already connected to the database, and they just ask Claude, how do I do this? Claude already searches the database, not just its own brains, and gives you the answer, but it searches the database, pulls up that skill, and it starts coaching you. So you don't even talk about SOPs anymore. Somebody downloads their brain, it goes into the AI brain, and then the AI just guides another person that's completely not into that field, and they follow the process perfectly.
It's amazing, right? I mean, I love it now. I have it built out with my own personalized operating system that I can literally go into Telegram, talk to my operating system while I'm on the road. Hey, just got off a call with Ivan Nikolov, had a great conversation. Can you help me, put together some notes on what we wanted to talk about on the podcast? Here's what we talked about during our initial call. This is the direction I think we should go in it. But it's already knows how to build the template out for our conversation. And I'm doing that from the road. And then I just show up and, okay, it's all done for me, which is amazing. And again, like that's what, what I've worked on with using AI is, and people have heard me talk about this, it's friction and connection. I need to spend more time on connection. So let me remove as much friction as possible. So Ivan, before we, kind of start to wrap up, I have to ask you, who is Ivan when he no longer has to work?
That's a good question. I'll tell you that I'm not afraid with sitting with the heavy questions of life. What is the meaning of life? Why was I born? When I'm going to die? What's the purpose of this whole game here? Why was I plopped on this planet? Why in this country? Why in this family? Why am I surrounded by these people? What is purpose? I'm not afraid of these questions. I already spent quite a bit of time on them. So I look forward to the times when I'll be able to do more of that. And I think what the future will look like for me in these times, let's say 10, 12 years from now, is in some way, I will be involved with helping other people find comfort of being here when they no longer have to create output to secure their living, when they have more time for everything else that they never had an idea that they'll have time for. I think I will be involved in that in some kind of way, and I look forward to that.
I love it. I love it. That's a great answer. So I like to ask, people, I call it my $1 million question, and I'll throw this out to you. When you look back on your life, both personally and professionally, or professionally for that matter, what's one moment that felt really small at the time, but ended up changing everything for you?
So remember when I mentioned in the beginning, I had immigrated to the United States. I was there for 16 years. The backstory is I had a marriage, a Bulgarian girl, but we were married for 13 years, and our marriage ended in a beautiful way, but it ended. So when that happened, I had a chance to just regroup because life was going to look completely different for me. And so I decided I'm going to go to Europe for a couple of months just to change scenery. And then I'll come back to the United States and just continue on a new path. That was in 2018. I've never been back in the United States since then. That was 8 years ago. But here's what happened. And it seemed very small at the time. So I was lost. And I remember I was in my mom's spare room in Europe. And I was listening to a meditation that I downloaded from YouTube because I just needed to find peace in some way. And this meditation started with, I'm recording this meditation on the request of my friend Vishen Lakiani from Mind Valley. And then the meditation continued. And the deal was to listen to it for 30 days because, you create a new habit within 30 to 100 days, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't pay much attention to this beginning for 7-8 days. And then all of a sudden I thought, who's this Vishen Lakiani guy? What's this Mind Valley thing? So I went online and Googled it. And he brought out this company, and I read on their page what they're about, their values and their mission. And I completely fell in love with that. And they were based in Malaysia. And so I applied, and life sent me to Malaysia. Then so it happened that I was sitting next to a lady that I really liked. She became my second wife eventually. Wow. And she decided to come back to Europe during COVID times. So I decided to leave that job and come back, be with her. Our son was born here in Spain, and life looks completely different for me because of this one thing. Listening to a meditation, getting curious about why this guy recorded the meditation for this other guy, and my life completely changed.
I love that. It's an amazing story. I didn't know that though you met your wife when you went over to Mind Valley. I think that's a very beautiful story. So before we wrap up, where can people find out more about Ivan Nikolov and Parallon AI?
Well, personally, I have a website, ivannikolov.com, or ivannikolov.com, but more relevant for people will be Parallon AI, just like that, double L, parallon.ai. That's where people can get in touch with us and find out a little bit of what we do.
Perfect. I love that. Yeah. So we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. And for anyone listening, if you're a business owner, operator, and you're thinking about how decisions, like about AI and things like that may affect your company, or whether it's growth, capital, technology, or long-term strategy, that is exactly the kind of conversations that I have every day. So if you need a second perspective or simply want someone to think it through with, please reach out. I'm always happy to have a conversation. And if you found today's conversation valuable, please subscribe to the podcast and share this episode with someone in your network who would benefit from it. Thank you for going beyond the deal with me and my new friend, Ivan here. Appreciate you having you on, Ivan. And let's continue to build something meaningful together. All right, take care, everybody.
Thank you, Michael. Take care.